Oh my God, that was really tough to watch.
Kirk trying to win it to Thielen, caught at the 5! I got 3 words for you. You like that? No! No!
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Skull Network. My name is Nick, and as most of you saw, the Minnesota Vikings just took a very hard and embarrassing loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 26-14 at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay, Florida. This is one of those games, and I always like to say in my videos, this is a tale of two halves or a tale of two whatever. This is a tale of like one quarter and then like 3 other quarters because, let's face it, the Minnesota Vikings played well in the very first quarter, and that's about where things ended. So let's just break everything down. There's a lot to talk about, and of course we're going to start with the point that everyone is going to want me to talk about. Mr. Dan Bailey. What in the world is going on? If it's not one part of the special teams, it's another. If it's not punt or kickoff return, it is Dan Bailey and his ability to kick field goals. Dan Bailey missed 3 field goals and his only extra point attempt of the game. Put that on top of his 3 missed kicks last week, and some people, and by some I mean most people, are believing that Dan Bailey is probably going to be out of a job here within the next 24 to 48 hours, and I wouldn't be surprised. It just baffles me so much. Ever since Gary Anderson happened, the Vikings have not been able to find one super consistent kicker that you could really rely on most of the time. And Dan Bailey, coming into this team when we brought him in a couple years ago, he was one of the top kickers to ever play in this game. He was like top 5 in field goal percentage overall? It was amazing. And all of a sudden, granted it took a little bit of time, but Dan is seemingly starting to fall off. And while I'm as pissed at Dan Bailey as everybody else, I want one thing to be clear. I saw a lot of people today, after his first, couple missed kicks and Zimmer would bring him on to the field to try and kick. They're like, why would you do that? Why is Zimmer making these bad decisions? Fire Zim, they're going back to that thing. The issue with saying that is, how is Dan Bailey ever going to get out of this funk, if he ever can, if he doesn't get the chance to go and make kicks? Now, obviously it didn't work out for him in the end, but at the same time, if you're a coach and your kicker is just not doing well, you have one of 2 options. Don't let him kick and make him feel even worse about how things are going, or 2, tell him you believe in him and at least give him a shot. In one situation, you're completely destroying his confidence even more than it already is, and in the other, you're at least giving him something to work with. So I just don't get that. I understand that it's difficult to look at a guy who's missed 3 kicks and be like, sure, we trust you. Because in reality, you really don't. But at the same time, you at least got to give him a shot. That being said, that was not the only, misfire from the Vikings today or the most painful thing from the Vikings. The Vikings came into this game knowing that Tampa Bay was going to be a tough defense. They were the number 1 ranked rush defense in the league. They put up 162 yards on them, with Dalvin Cook putting up over 100 and a touchdown. The first running back this season to put over 100 yards on that Tampa Bay defense. They held the ball for damn near forever. They had it for 20 minutes in the first half, and they still went into the half down by 9. There's a lot of things that went into this, and the fact that we could put up that many rushing yards against a defense like Tampa's is amazing, but at the same time, it just shows how other facets of the game affect us so much. And like I said, this was a tale of the first quarter being for the Vikings, and the last 3 definitely more so for Tampa Bay. Especially considering the fact that at the very end of the second half, the last 3 possessions that Tampa Bay had all resulted in points. 2 touchdowns and a field goal. The Vikings, their last possession of the second half lasted 15 seconds, which allowed Tampa Bay another chance to drive down the field, which is exactly what they did. But it wasn't without the help of incredible, should again be a free agent after this season, linebacker Todd Davis, who somehow got pass interference on a Hail Mary. I don't know about you guys, I don't think I've ever seen that once in my life. But it's just common sense. Everyone's going to be there. You don't need to be on top of the guy because there's going to be 5 or 6 other defenders there. Todd Davis, what are you doing? That gave him 3 more points. Now, in hindsight, it didn't really matter because we weren't going to be scoring any kicking points of our own anyway, but at the same time, that's just something you don't do, and that's really when things started to go downhill, not just when Dan Bailey was missing kicks. Now, as many of you know, I am a Kirk lover, apologist, whatever you want to call it. I'm rarely a Kirk hater, and as someone who does really like Kirk and his play style, for the most part, I think that Kirk played pretty alright this game. There was actually a number of situations I'm sure you guys all saw where he felt pressure and left the pocket and he ran for a good amount of yards. Now, were there times that he kind of negated that by sitting in the pocket like he likes to do? Yes, but this is also one of those games where I'm a little scared to see the PFF scores of the offensive linemen. Now, if I can get them before I post this video for you guys, I'll put them right up here. But I don't think it's going to be very pretty in many aspects for this offensive line. And apart from that, none of our receivers really put up incredibly big games, but it was nice to see CJ Ham through many key blocks and also caught a few passes as well turning into very positive plays. I don't see a situation where he doesn't at least get to be like a Pro Bowl backup behind Kyle Juszczyk. It's pretty set in stone for him. And also we can't forget about Kyle Rudolph missing his first game in 98 games or whatever. And Tyler Conklin and Irv Smith Jr. actually both stepped up very well, combining for 9 total catches and 103 yards and a touchdown. That's a big relief to see, as I said. It makes me feels more safe, the idea of possibly letting Kyle Rudolph go after this season, because let's face it, Kyle has a big contract and has just not been properly utilized over the course of the last 3 or 4 offensive coordinators. And I like guys like Irv Smith and Tyler Conklin. While he may not be perfect, he's definitely a good backup if Irv Smith were to become the starter. But aside from that, like I said, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, those guys did, pretty well, as they tend to do. No one put up amazing numbers. It was just a very strange game from the offense because they were doing so well to start off. Obviously, Dan Bailey didn't necessarily help when we got into the red zone, and that's another thing. When we get down to the red zone, we're one of the better teams on offense in that situation, and we just really weren't able to convert much today, especially in that first half. And it really did come back to bite us because it made Dan Bailey kick, who cost us 10 total points. And I want to continue to talk about these penalty woes because they just continue to happen. If you remember, the very first punt return for the Vikings, Chad Beebe was already down for probably close to a second and then just took a massive shot to the head. Absolutely no call. It was ridiculous. And now I will say this, Harrison Smith finally deserved his, leading with the head to initiate contact penalty, but this was the first of that sort that should have really been a penalty. It's ridiculous the amount of penalties that have been called against him this year, but this one he finally actually deserved. And let's also not forget Jason Pierre-Paul literally throwing an elbow into the face of Kirk Cousins and the refs just completely blowing it off. And the last important thing that I really need to talk about was play calling in this one. It kind of threw me off quite a bit. Now let me explain. As we know, Gary Kubiak this year has had some really bright moments, and he's also had some really weird, dark, dull moments. And this game was absolutely no exception. Like I said, Dalvin Cook and the rest of the team ran the ball incredibly well, especially in the first half and a good bit into the third quarter, but only a little bit. After that, things got extremely strange. To start off the second half, Gary Kubiak, why are we calling a screenplay on 3rd and 10 on our first possession? I understand that it works from time to time, but you cannot bank on it just because of the nature of the game. Teams catch on to that sort of thing, and we throw screens a lot. It's no secret, and teams obviously figure that out later into the game. But he also did the same thing when we were down by 12 at the start of one of our last drives in the fourth quarter. 5 minutes and 12 seconds left. It's 3rd and 10, and you call another screenplay. And on top of that, I understand that some of this, what I'm about to say, might be on Kirk. There was a whole lot of checking down on down to distances where you should not be checking down to, the lowest level receiver. And I get that Tampa Bay's pass defense was actually playing really good press coverage this game, but at the same time, you got to take some shots. I understand that in Kirk's situation, he kind of feels that he can't take shots like that because if he messes up, throws an interception, people are going to hate him, but if he checks down, we'll catch it, we won't get many yards, and people are going to hate him. It's kind of a lose-lose situation, but Gary Kubiak was extremely weird today. He didn't call nearly enough play action because, as we know, for the most part, when the run game is doing well, Kirk thrives really well off of play action, but Gary Kubiak just decided to completely abandon it and go to screens and checkdowns towards the end of the game when we're trying to score 2 scores to come back into this game because our kicker can't kick the right side of a barn. And I just didn't understand it at all. And that's all I kind of got to say. There wasn't a ton of bright spots in this game. I mean, there's a few moments here and there, Dalvin busting a run. Dalvin Cook also fell down like 3 or 4 times on runs where he easily could have broken it for 60, 70 yards. That was also a little strange. We don't need to be worried about his hand injury. I seem to be fine on that. It was a matter of time before Tampa Bay's defense found things out and our rookie corners just got burned by Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown. That team is just full of weapons. You name it, they got a weapon to go against a rookie on our defense. And it doesn't match up well, and the fact that we were in this game at all is very impressive, but it is looking a little bleak for the Vikings to get into the playoffs at this point, because now that the Cardinals have beat the Giants, they're back in that number 7 seed, and the schedules are not in our favor. The Vikings have games against the Lions, the Bears, and the Saints left this season. Now, you can imagine that the Bears and the Lions games are definitely more winnable than the Saints game. I'm not ruling out the Saints game. We beat teams like the Packers. We were kind of somewhat competitive with Tampa Bay today, as weird as it sounds, but the Cardinals side of things is a lot more favorable, with games against the Eagles, as well as the 49ers and the Rams. Those are all very winnable games for Arizona, so we have to bank on them losing to the Rams and then one of those 2 other teams, which doesn't seem extremely likely. But I'm not putting it out of the question. This team is not out of the playoffs. It's just a little more of a bumpy road up from here. And that's going to wrap things up here for the recap between the Minnesota Vikings and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A lot of heartbreak, a lot of questions that are going to be asked over this next week, and a lot of possibly moves that will be made made. I'm not saying anything. Dan Bailey, there's just some people that might be on their way out. But aside from that, that is the end of this. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit the button down below to subscribe. And if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like. If you guys want to share the video, make sure that you do that as well. Doesn't matter who you share it with, where you share it, just make sure that the crack dealer on the corner knows that this video happened. You guys already know. My name is Nick, and I will see you guys in NFL Week 15 picks coming out on this Wednesday. Adios.